Thoth, is he one of the Watchers or a son of one of the Watchers? Well, if you've been watching the series thus far, he is indeed a half demigod, a man of renown, an Atlantean. We know that he has gone down the generations as the Greek god Hermes, the Roman god Mercury, the Germanic god Odin, and even a Christ figure before the birth of Christ, known as the Kriophoros, a shepherd god, bringing glad tidings, God spells, gospels, God spells, gospels. We talked about that in the previous videos. But does his influence stop there? Could it be that the men of renown, the Nephilim, such as Thoth, have influenced the Masonic Lodges, alliances with the Queen of England, King James himself, and even Hollywood's Ian Fleming, the creator of King James Bond? This is the discussion of tonight's study, right here on the Bible Explained. What's going on, everybody? Thank you again for joining the next episode in our study about the Watchers, the 200 Watchers that we've read about in the book of Enoch. We also read about them in the book of Jude of the New Testament of the Holy Scriptures. We've got Isaiah back in the studio today. Glad you're here back with me. We got some exciting info for you all. I'm very excited to share that. How about you, Isaiah? How you doing?
I'm doing well. I'm ready to jam. We got some amazing topics to talk about and just to dive deep like we've been doing.
Indeed, indeed. So let's get into it. Let's get into it tonight. We're talking about Thoth, as you all know, and the secrets of magic. We've been reading from the Emerald Tablets of Thoth, and we're going to continue reading from those tablets, the secret of magic. All right. We're not going in order of the tablets. We are going in the order that we want to, but eventually we will finish the entire tablet, including the book that we brought up, the study Bible, the OASPE, OAHSPE. I will have that link to the study Bible down in the description for you all to check out. But something came to mind here. We're talking about these Egyptian gods, and I want you guys to take a look at this. Look at these Egyptian gods. We talked about Thoth, and he is represented by the head of the ibis, which is the head of a bird. And the NIV translation in the book of Proverbs has shown that relation to the god of wisdom, or the bird, the ibis, is translated as wisdom. But look at Osiris, look at Horus. All of these Egyptian gods have the head of an animal, but the body of a man. Why is that? Why are people depicting them as a representation of an animal for their head? And what comes to my mind, and I'm sure you would agree, Isaiah, is Genesis 6. Let's go there. Genesis 6 gives us a better idea of what is happening here. It says, Genesis 6, let's read at verse 1. Now it came to pass when men began to multiply on the face of the earth, and daughters were born to them, that the sons of God saw the daughters of men, that they were beautiful, and they took wives for themselves of all whom they chose. And the Lord said, My spirit shall not strive with man forever, for he is indeed flesh, yet his days shall be 120 years. Now let's stop for a second. Down in the comments below in previous videos, we got some interesting information from you all in this study. We've read the definitions of the word God. We've read the definition of the word Lord. We've read the definition of Lord God, and we saw that those were titles pertaining to the angelic hierarchy. So from that perspective, because things within Genesis or the scriptures, sometimes it doesn't seem like it's coming from the great I am, right? Sometimes it does seem like it's coming from different perspective or different opinions, different gods, different mindsets. If we were to go with that in this sentence that we just read here in verses 1 through 3, if this is an angel speaking, we know that angels are of spirit who have the ability to masquerade and transform into any physical person that they would like to as they come into the atmosphere. Originally, they are in the ether, the spirit world, which they can then come into a three-dimensional world. They are the original transformers, right? So with that in mind, we also read in the study Bible, we talked about the first race of men, the first race of men to be here. And we're thinking, and I'm just paraphrasing what we read in the comments from our viewers. What if the angels had the ability to create men in their image? And that could be the first race of men that was depicted in the first study Bible. And then the second group is the great I am doing his work with the first Adam, and therefore we have Eve. What if, right? It's a very interesting perspective. So I wanted to say that as we read this. My spirit shall not strive with man forever, for he is indeed flesh, yet his days shall be 120 years. There were giants on the earth in those days, and also afterward. That right there is telling you there are two sets of errors. You have the first generation of giants in those days, and then you have a second generation of giants in the also afterward. There's a beginning and there's a second incursion. The second incursion, I believe, is where the half demigods are coming from. The first part are, of course, the original demigods, half woman, they are a product of a woman and angel, and then you take that and mate with another woman or even an animal, and thus you get the gods that we're seeing here depicted as Thoth, Osiris, Horus, and all the others, including, we have different centaurs and satyrs. We also see them inside of Greek mythology. Where do you think they get the idea from? They didn't just do this out of nowhere. This is actual chimera on the earth. And this is what God is saying. He says, when the sons of God came into the daughters of men, and they bore children to them, those were the mighty men who were of old. These are the mighty men that were worshipped back in the day, back in the days of Atlantis, when Atlantis was here over in North America. And then something happened, right? Something took place to where they had to move over to the northern side, over to the east of North America, where the sun is always appearing to rise. That's where they went, over in the African continent, to set up the pyramids over there. Verse 5, Then the Lord saw that the wickedness of man was great in the earth, and that every intent of the thoughts of his heart was only evil continually. And the Lord was sorry that he had made man on the earth, and he was grieved in his heart. So the Lord said, I will destroy man, whom I have created from the face of the earth, both man and beast, creeping thing and birds of the air, for I am sorry that I have made them. But Noah found grace in the eyes of the Lord. Now, Isaiah, what do you think? Do you think that every time we read the word Lord, we could be referring to an angel here that can actually be sorry for what he created? Because I don't think, if from that perspective, I don't think the great I am will be sorry for anything that he's created, because he knows the end from the beginning.
Correct. Well, before I address that, I want to go back to where it says, and also afterwards. And it used to really bug me out, thinking, okay, well, Scripture says the Nephilim are going to come back, but how? If the Watchers and the like don't have any type of bodies, and the Watchers are in Tartarus, correct?
Correct. We do know that they're going to be back.
Right.
They possibly could be back right now, just not revealed to us right now.
Right. And the Holy Spirit brought it to my mind to think about, well, it's not that it's just a theory, but what if the Watchers don't actually sleep with women today, breed with women today, but it's more so of a artificial insemination, to where the angelic seed of the Watchers was preserved over however long they're in Tartarus. I mean, we got sperm banks all over. So why would it be out of the question that these Watchers wouldn't theoretically have their sperm saved for a later time? And these scientists, these wicked, evil scientists of today, are not having their seed, the Watcher's seed, and doing crazy experimentations in these laboratories that we don't have access to.
That's a grisly thought, and I could not put it past me. Oh, I mean, that's awesome.
That's some scientific sci-fi movie type stuff.
Right. And I mean, we've seen that in film as well. I can't think of the name of the film, but I think it was called Splice, something like that. And they were, mixing of angelic DNA with human and other animals.
Right.
Yeah, we've seen that. I think the Sumerian text includes a lot of the writings of the Chimera, and they loved doing that. It was all about seed. So yeah.
Nothing under the sun is new. I mentioned sperm banks. They were doing this stuff way back then. It's just our earthly minds, our finite minds, just we don't think about those things unless we get divine revelation about them doing those things.
Right. Exactly. Bringing this up is because we saw the comments and we're like, that's something that was worthy of mentioning here, because in our study Bible here it is here. When last time we read it, we went all the way down and we read the description of the Asu right here. The Asu, the first race of men to crawl on the belly. And I think that we think that's a phrase, a figure of speech. To crawl in your belly means to not go in the way that you're supposed to go. And as we go down to the first chapter, please go back in the previous videos to get the full chapter reading. But in the first chapter, it was telling us a little detail behind the first race of men. I want to go over that really quick. Verses 1 through 5. It says, after the creation of man, the Creator Jehovah said unto him, that thou shalt know thou art the work of my hand. I have given thee capacity for knowledge, power, and dominion. This was the first error. That is a segment of time. But man was helpless, crawling on his belly. Crawling on his belly means helpless. You're not going in the way that you should go.
An infancy state of mind.
Exactly, an infancy state of mind. And he understood not the voice of the Almighty, and Jehovah called his angels, who were older than the earth, and he said unto them, go ye, raise man upright, and teach him to understand. And the angels of heaven descended to the earth and raised man upright, and man wandered about on the earth. This was the second error. Now, these angels who have descended to the earth, that's telling us that it's not only the watchers who did it. There were watchers who had their roles to play. There were lords that had their role to play. There were principalities, powers, mights, dominions, Ophanim. There were so many types, seraphim, cherubim, so many types that had their role to play. And everything is based on the center of the entire creation of the great I am, which is earth. That is one of the key reasons why the enemy and his 7 tetrarchs are so against man. Man is the center of everything because they are the complete image, whereas the angels are not, even though they were created before us. They're older than the earth. We don't know how long they've been here before the earth, but I believe in the book of Job, it says that the angels were created a little bit before the creation of the earth. So they saw everything. And for the fact that they have more power than us and they can do what we wish we could do, and yet we can command them by our words. And I believe you talked about this last time, Isaiah, in the Testament of Solomon, how much he was able to control the angelic and the demonic spirits by his words and by rings of signet.
Correct. Yeah. In the Testament of Solomon, really good book. Gives us insight on what Solomon was able to do and how he got the Temple of Solomon?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, how the Temple of Solomon was built not by human hands, but celestial hands. And obviously, because they could do far greater feats than we can do right now. But God gave him a ring, the power ring of God, and he was able to bind and command and have authority over. It says Belial, Baal, some of the super high ranking fallen angels and demons.
Wow. So I believe that's Belial and Baal, the Lord of the flies, Lord of the high places.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
There was also a description of a fine demonic or fallen angel of the female sorts, and the testament goes on to describe her with having wide hips, curves that catches men's eyes, and her job was literally to seduce and basically sexually hypnotize and bring destruction to people's lives.
Wow. Now that's going to have to be a book that we have to get into in the future.
Almost definitely.
Yeah, we can't just say that and talk about um, demonic forces and angelic and chimera's hips without really getting into that.
Well, it's pretty scary how descriptive this character of this book is, knowing exactly what men like, and just the understanding of,
And
well,
angels.
yeah, exactly.
Oh, that's going to be an interesting read. So, you know, you guys, this is all um, within our study. So now let's go ahead and get over into the secrets of magic from the Emerald Tablets of Thoth. Let's get into that. Going
And
back to
that's
our
another good thing too is
uh
it talks about, and I'm not saying we're getting into it as far as doing it or conjuring nothing. We don't mess with no magic. Um, but the Testament of Solomon goes into details as well, as far as just different divinity type things.
oh, indeed, indeed. It gets crazy. You guys, now I have to give you a fair warning. There are some sections in this tablet, tablet number 6 here, that if you're not careful, you can conjure something. We are not going to do that here. So there will be some parts that I do not read over. There are going to be some names that I do not call out. This is the secrets of magic. So if you want to skip this section, you may do so. All right, let's get into it.
But no, we are covered.
It says, "Hark ye, O man, to the wisdom of magic. Hark the knowledge of powers forgotten. Long ago, in the days of the first man," we just read about that, "warfare began between darkness and light." You know, it's interesting how these tablets and our study Bible and the Bible itself, it's starting to come full circle with some of the key words you're starting to notice here. Men, then as now, were filled with both darkness and light. In other words, crawling on thy belly. And while in some darkness held sway, and other light filled the soul. I, age old in this warfare, the eternal struggle between darkness and light. Fiercely it is fought all through the ages, using strong powers hidden to man. Adepts has there been filled with the blackness, struggling always against the light. But others there are who, filled with brightness, have ever conquered the darkness of night. Where'er ye may be in all ages and plain, surely ye shall know of the battle with night. Long ages ago, the sons of the morning, descending, found the world filled with night. There in that past began the struggle, the age-old battle, darkness and night. Darkness and light. Now, when I hear the age-old battle, I'm thinking of the third of angelic, that is against the great I am, and the 2/3 of angelic, that is with the great I am. This is that age-old battle between darkness and light, where the angels fought. Because a clear giveaway is the sons of the morning. We know in the book of Isaiah, the prophet, where Lucifer talks about himself being, "O great Lucifer, son of the morning." But it is spelled S-O-N, as in a son of a deity that pre-exists. But they also masquerade and use the word S-U-N, as in Malachi 4:2, because the second Godhead person is also referred to as the brightest, the almightiest. And so therefore they're trying to take that hijack.
Mm-hmm.
So they call themselves the sons of the morning as well.
They have nothing to lose. Of course they're going to take it.
Mm-hmm. Many in the time were so filled with darkness that only feebly flamed the light from the night. Some they were masters of darkness, who sought to fill all with their darkness, sought to draw others into their night. Fiercely withstood they, the masters of brightness, fiercely fought they from the darkness of night. So ever to tighten the fetters, the chains that bind men to the darkness of night, used they always the dark magic. There's dark magic and there's white magic, brought into men by the power of darkness, magic that enshrouded man's soul with darkness. See, we're reading about how that first race of man lost their way, how they were crawling on their belly, dibbling and dabbling inside of dark magic, which was taught to them by the Watchers.
Minds and hearts become diluted.
Mm-hmm.
So let me ask you this: as far as magic, would you say that before they fell, that their powers were considered, of course, it was good power. It wasn't called magic, but when they fell, it was now deemed magic because that power is now perverse.
Whenever they use the abilities that they have outside of the great I Am's will, that is considered dark magic. It's abusing their ability that they've been given. And that's where Aleister Crowley gets, do as thou wilt. When you do as thou wilt, you're outside the boundaries. Now, and that's very interesting because the 2/3 of the angelic, when they use their abilities for the kingdom, for the great I Am, for the all highest, the all presence, it's not considered dark magic.
Yeah, that sounds like the light side and dark side of the Force.
In Star Wars, exactly. Mm-hmm. Banded together as in order, brothers of darkness, they through the ages, antagonist, they to the children of men, dun dun dun. Walked they always secret and hidden, found, yet not found by the children of men. Forever they walked and worked in darkness, hiding from the light in the darkness of night. Silently, secretly, used they their power, enslaving and binding the soul of men. Now, when you enslave and bind the soul of men, this is another word for the mind. You are a 3-part being: body, mind, soul, and spirit. And so when they secretly bind the soul of the men, they're persuading you by all of your senses, by what you see, by what you hear, and by what you feel, even by what you taste.
Can you also classify that as oppression?
That is spiritual oppression. That is also spiritual. There's oppression, there's possession, that when we get into the demonic side of it. And there's another one for it, I can't remember. Unseen they come and unseen they go. Man in his ignorance calls them from below. Dark is the way of the dark brothers travel, dark of the darkness, not of the night, traveling o'er earth. They walk through man's dreams. That sounds like Inky, incubus, and succubus.
Yep.
How many of you who are watching, leave your comment down below if you've ever experienced, what is that phrase, Isaiah, when you're asleep?
Sleep paralysis.
Sleep paralysis. How many of you have ever experienced sleep paralysis where you know you're awake, you're conscious of it, you know you're trying to sleep, and you can't move? You cannot move, and you're trying desperately, and you feel a presence over you, and it's sometimes frightening, but guess what? You can control it. And by the time you're unable to control that, that doesn't happen as much. But usually when you are someone who is studying a lot and you're going to make a difference in the earth realm when it comes to destroying the enemy's plan, you will be attacked.
Yeah, it used to happen to me a lot more often a while ago. I say a couple years back. If I were to listen to a song that I wasn't supposed to be listening to, that had like a heavy spiritual presence on it, like suicide or murder or something crazy sexual, movies, rated R movies or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
The most that I would notice is whenever I would sleep on my back, it would happen, and I could feel everything. It felt like a 10-ton weight was just on all of my body.
Yep.
And then I started to, okay, I need to call out. At the time I needed to call out the name of Jesus. Like I couldn't. It wasn't enough just to think it in my mind. I had to say it. I had to call out and pull on the authority that name carries. And then once I would do that, I would say, in Jesus' name, you need to leave. You have no authority here. Boom, in a blink of an eye, gone.
Right. Exactly. I remember sometimes struggling to say something.
Exactly. Yep.
Yeah. And I remember this happened to me. My brother was in town visiting, and he was there, and he could tell that my mouth was trying to move. And I couldn't. It was like Neo in the Matrix, where he said, "Let me make my phone call." And all of a sudden the agent said, "What good is a phone call if you're unable to speak?"
Yep.
You know, and so it was as if my lips were sewed together. I just couldn't do anything.
Exactly.
What they put in movies is it comes from something of experience that we all have gone through, consciously or some unconsciously.
Yeah, I equate it also as, it's so much spiritual pressure. You feel so weak. It's like being on so much morphine or drugged up to where it's just like, I know what I need to do, but I can't do it, and I'm moving so slow.
Right. Exactly. If you guys have ever experienced that, leave your comments down below, and we'd like to know if that's still happening, or if, just your experiences with that. That way we can recognize it and understand how to control it, because a lot of times we can't control when it happens, but if we're aware when it happens, it makes the passing a much easier.
Shoot, and get freedom.
Get freedom as well. Let's go and continue here. It says, power they have gained from the darkness around them to call other dwellers from out of their plane. In ways that are dark and unseen by man, into man's mind space reach the dark brothers. Around it, they close the veil of their night. Through its lifetime, that soul dwells in bondage, bound by the fetters of the veil of the night. Mighty are they in the forbidden knowledge, forbidden because it is one with the night. Hark ye, old man, and list to my warning. But ye, free from the bondage of night, surrender not your soul to the brothers of darkness. Keep thy face ever turned towards the light. Know ye not, O man, that your sorrow only has come through the veil of the night? I, man, heed ye my warning, strive ever upward, turn your soul toward the light. The brothers of darkness seek for their brothers, those who traveled the pathway of light. For well know they that those who have traveled far towards the sun in their pathway of light have great and yet greater power to bind with darkness the children of light. Did you hear what that just said? It is trying to take the darkness and all of the brothers of darkness, which are the angelic, and to take their plans, take their influence into the children of men, so much that it will cross over and bind with the children of light, you and I, and we wouldn't even know it. And therefore we would be crossed over and be considered a child of darkness. What does the Bible call it? The children of the father of lies, and you won't even know it. There's so many ways that you can be crossed over in today's society of modern society and the way things are.
With that being said, would you say that ignorance it would be a good thing?
Ignorance, and the word does talk about that too. But once you do know and you become of sound mind of the information, you now have a responsibility. Ignorance is only going to go so far. At some point, you will get the information that you need to know. At some point in your life, you will get it.
Right.
This is why he is the great judge, because at some point in your life, you got the information and you either accepted or you ignored it.
Right. And I think there's to that. There's no it's not necessarily an escape, but I think it's bound to go in that direction of truth because the spirit man inside of us longs for the truth.
Mm-hmm. It does. We have an existential drive for the truth. Let's continue. List ye, O man, to he who comes to you, but weigh in the balance if his words be of light. For many there are who walk in dark brightness, and yet are not the children of light. Easy it is to follow their pathway, easy to follow the path that they lead. But yet, O man, heed ye my warning. Light comes only to him who strives. Hard is the pathway that leads to the wisdom, the Thoth, the abyss. Hard is the path that leads to the light. And guess who this is? The false light, because it talked about dark brightness. Who is the false light?
Satan.
There you go. The ancient Lucifer, Satan and his 7 tetrarchs. Many shall he find, the stones in your pathway. I want you to remember this, the stones in tonight's study. Many the mountains to climb towards the light. Yet know ye, O man, to him that overcometh, free will he be of the pathway of light. For ye know, O man, in the end, light must conquer, and darkness and night must be banished from light. Listen, O man, and heed ye this wisdom, and even as darkness, so is the light. When darkness is banished, and all veils are rended, out there shall flash from the darkness the light. Even as exist among men the dark brothers, so there exist the brothers of light. This is the 1/3 of the innumerable angelic, and this is the 2/3. We're switching back and forth. We got the enemy leads the light. That's the false light. We also have a good light as well that's being mentioned in here. We know this because it says the antagonists, they of the brothers of darkness, seeking to free men from the night. Powers have they, mighty and potent, knowing the law, the planets obey. Work they ever in harmony and order, freeing the man soul, the mind, from its bondage of night. Secret and hidden walk they also, known not are they to the children of men. Ever have they fought the dark brothers, conquered and conquering time without end. Yet always light shall in the end be master, driving away the darkness of night. I, man, know ye this knowing, always beside thee walk the children of light. Masters, they of the sun power, even unseen, yet the guardians of men, open to all is their pathway, open to he who will walk in the light. Free are they of dark amenity, free of the halls where life reigns supreme. Sons are they and lords of the morning. This is a title, and this is a title. Title for who? The angelic. Children of light to shine among men. Like man are they, and yet are unlike. Never divided were they in the past. One have they been in oneness eternal, throughout all space since the beginning of time. Up did they come in oneness with the all one. The all one. Who is the all one? Up from the first space, formed and unformed. Given to man have they secrets that shall guard and protect him from all harm. He who would travel the path of the master, free must he be from the bondage of night. Conquer must he the formless and shapeless. Conquer must he the phantom of fear. Knowing must he gain of all of the secrets, travel the pathway that leads through the darkness, yet ever before him keep the light of his goal. Obstacles great shall he meet in the pathway, yet press on to the light of the sun. Hear ye, O man, the sun is the symbol. The sun is the symbol. Remember those coins we looked at that had the sun up at the top that was illuminating on all of the continents, and it had a different dating system? who
Of course.
assisted him,
Yep.
the Iesus, the Jesus, Jesus, Jesus Caesar, render unto Caesar what is Caesar's, the Son. And it's always been a fact that all of the Caesars eventually, not all of them, but some of them strive to be deified as a son of God, their God. There's a difference when it says in the year of our Lord versus in the year of the Lord. Big difference. Hear ye, O men, the sun is the symbol of the light that shines at the end of thy road. Now to thee give I the secrets. Now to meet the dark power, meet and conquer the fear from the night. Only by knowing can ye conquer. Only be knowing can ye have light. Now I give unto thee the knowledge known to the masters, the knowing that conquers all the dark fears. Use this, the wisdom I give thee. Master thou shalt be of the brothers of night. When unto thee comes a feeling, drawing thee nearer to the darker gate, examine thine heart and find if the feeling thou has come from within. If thou shalt find the darkness, thine own thoughts, banish them forth from the place in thy mind. Send through thy body a wave, a vibration, irregular first and regular second, repeating time after time until free. Start the wave force in thy brain center, directed in waves from thine head to thy foot. But if thou findest thine heart is not darkened, be sure that a force is directed to thee. Only by knowing can thou overcome it. Only by wisdom can thou hope to be free. Knowledge brings wisdom, and wisdom is power. Attain, and ye shall have power over all. Seek ye first a place bound by darkness. Place ye a circle around about thee. Stand erect in the midst of the circle. Use thou this formula, and ye shalt be free. Raise thou thine hands to the dark space above thee. Close thou thine eyes and draw in the light. Call to the spirit of light through the space-time, using these words, and thou shalt be free. I am not going to read this. If you feel that you want to, you may do so. But it is talking about the 7 lords that rule. Remember, we have 7 continents, and we have the 7 tetrarchs. Satan is the chief of the 7 tetrarchs. Now, it goes into their names here. We are not calling upon them here in this broadcast, so we'll move forward from that. Know ye, O man, that when ye have done this, ye shall be free from the fetters that bind ye. Cast off the bondage of the brothers of night. See ye not that the names have the power free by vibration the fetters that bind? Use them at need to free thou thine brother, so that he too may come forth from the night. Thou, O man, art thy brother's helper. Let him not lie in the bondage of night. Now unto thee give I my magic. Take it and dwell on the pathway of light. Light unto thee, life unto thee. Sun may thou be on the cycle above. In the name of the great I am, Nothing shall go forth and harm those that are listening to this broadcast. Now, let's go back a little bit. What comes to my mind? Well, let me hear from you, Isaiah. What do you think about this read?
I mean, it's deep. Not only are you getting yourself oppressed, possessed, and used for darkness and in bondage, to me it says that to go after your brother, those who you call brother or sister, and get them caught up as well.
Right.
I mean, the last thing I want to see is me looking up and then out of nowhere something just materialized, and it's not from the great I am.
Right, exactly. The study of apologetics is to know your enemy, is to know, right? If you are going to be effective and to help someone else understand what you believe, you first need to know where they're coming from. You don't know what information that they've read. You don't know what's causing them to be conflicted in their heart. So if we can learn as much as we can about what the enemy uses and their devices, we can become more equipped. When I read this, I see, okay, this is what Aleister Crowley was talking about. This is what Anton LaVey, the great the pastor of the Church of Satan, is doing, right? These are the things that they're reading. These are the texts that they're trying to understand and get clarification for themselves. They're just trying to gain all of this infinite knowledge, which will never happen.
I was just gonna say real quick, and just going back to geek out a little bit. This is how the Jedi in Star Wars were destroyed. They knew of the Sith, but they didn't know the Sith.
Exactly. That's how the Republic fell. And that's the very same way for the Republic of America. They knew of British America, and they also helped them. And British America used magic to get the Moors to surrender. They used magic on them. I cannot wait to get into that study.
Yep. Covenants, contracts, different ways. I mean, I think we said in the previous video that man could not come up with this stuff on his own to be able to take over and write up things that just, oh, well, I'm inspired. I've studied. I've done. No, they have gotten. You either get your knowledge from one or the other. It's either a divine inspiration from the Most High, revelation, or you're getting that from the fallen celestial demonic.
Right, exactly. And if you look at this tablet is called the Key of Magic. How to first break down your enemy to control them. It's talking about bondage. The etymology of bondage is bond.
Mm-hmm.
You have to understand 3 parties of a bond in order for it to happen. And that is what treaties are based off. That is what the Constitution is based off. That is what contracts are based off. And that is what trusts are based off. Right. It's about a bond. So they've used these things to put themselves into power. And I'm pretty sure they called on these 7 here. Let's not show that, but they called on these 7 there to get where they are today as far as power. Now, not only did the world do that, but this has also influenced other individuals that we'll talk about tonight. But this is also translated down into the Hermetica. And we looked at this before, how Thoth came into the Greek mythology system. You see his name here. He's also known as the Greek god Hermes. And so as we go down, we saw that Hermes Trismegistus, that's another word for thrice, 3 in 1, right? As you see in the image there, you have one individual there, you have one individual down below, and there's a head sticking up there. The helmet is facing the east. Everything is always facing the rising of the sun. This is the Trinity before the Trinity. They knew what was coming. So Hermes, the Trinity.
It might not make much sense, again, because we're thinking with finite minds, and it just hasn't been revealed to us. But we don't know how long, because there is no time in the spirit realm, correct?
That is the Kairos. Correct. We live in the Chronos, where there is time, that there is no time in the spirit realm.
So we don't know how long things took place before we came about.
Exactly. We don't. And the book of Genesis is not written, it's not a chronological event. It's not written chronologically. So it's not in order. When you read things like what we read in Genesis 6, people will think, well, that is chronologically from Genesis 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. No, it's not. It is different amounts of time. The span of time that takes place in Genesis 6, 1 through 11 could be far more than what we think as fast as we read it.
Right.
It's
because you could ask and say, well, when did Lucifer fall, and when was pride found in his heart? That could have been way before the creation of man. And I mean, we just read that tablet. They've been fighting for, I mean, again, we don't know, we can't call it time, but we're just, for the sake of this conversation, we're saying time, but they could have been fighting thousands of hundreds of years before we came about.
Oh yeah, for sure. Now the Hermetica, it deals a lot with magic, and we know magic is another word for alchemy, science and magic and geometry and all of that. So that has had a major influence, right? The Masons love the Hermetica. They love alchemy. They love the practicing of conjuring spirits. We've read with the Hermetica in the past where they would, kind of like what Solomon had the ability to do, was call statues to come alive. And the spirit would go into the statue and commune and talk with whoever conjured it. This is what they did with the statue of Moloch, as tribes were giving their children, anywhere from 1 to newborns up to 7 years old, as a sacrifice to Moloch, and the statue is moving, and they'll put him in the belly of the flame. We're going to get into some heavy stuff later on in the series about that, how that was taking place. But this is what they did, and we do this today. It's called Planned Parenthood. The very same thing. The law of first mention. Remember that. What was done in the past, just because you change it a little bit today, doesn't mean that the root of it changes. It stays the same. The god of Moloch is still in operation today. Now, I talked about the Masons, right? We talked about the Masons. And if you really want to understand how Masonry has crept in, or Thoth and the Hermetica has crept in, we got to go to the book called The Legend of the Craft. The Legend of the Craft. But I can't really go to the Legend of the Craft because not just yet, there's an individual who is the founding father of the spiritual aspect of Masonry. And we know who that person is. If you don't know, you got to wait. I'm going to pull it up for you. We're going to Genesis 4, 2 chapters back. We're going to go to verses 22. Now you guys know. Verses 22. Let's go with 19. Then Lamech took for himself 2 wives, not just one, 2. The name of one was Adah, and the name of the second was Zillah. And Adah bore Jabal. He was the father of those who dwell in tents and have livestock. His brother's name was Jubal. He was the father of all those who play the harp and flute. And as for Zillah, she also bore Tubal-Cain, an instructor of every craftsman in bronze and iron. Right. He is the first mason of metal, crafting bronze and iron and forging. Now, this is around the time where the angels were coming down and trying to influence men to begin to walk upright, because the phrase crawling on their belly, they're getting into things with magic. They're still dealing with the angelic and their children, the Nephilim and the second generation Nephilim. So with Tubal-Cain, the reason why we're mentioning him as an instructor of every craftsman in bronze and iron, it's not just your hammer and chisel of metal. This is going into the spiritual aspect of Freemasonry, which leads to the legend of the craft, right? So
yeah, when I hear that, the image that gets painted in my head is that you know, your dad says, man, your little brother's out there fooling with that bike. He don't know what he's doing. You need to go out there and help him, give him a hand. You know, he's crawling on his belly. He don't know what he's doing. You need to help him.
Oh yeah, I remember that. And you know, I'm seeing something here, and I really need to pull this up. Well, I'll just say it because we've talked about it in the past. Remember when we pulled up the study Bible and it showed the true names of the great I am, and it also showed the false names?
Yep.
The false names was Father, Son, Savior, Holy Ghost. Those are false titles that angelic took. So now let's read this. The historical origins of Freemasonry. The legend of the craft. The might of the Father of Kings with the wisdom of his glorious Son. There's one. And there's one. Through the grace of the goodness of the Holy Ghost. There's the third. There being 3 persons in one Godhead, be with us at our beginning. Now, these are the Masons talking. They're not talking to the great I am. They're talking to angels. They're communing with angels. Be with us at the beginning and give us grace, so to govern us here in this mortal life, living, that we may come to his kingdom that never shall have ended. Amen. Good brethren and followers, our purpose is to tell you how and in what manner this worthy science of Masonry was begun, and afterwards how it was favored by worthy kings and princes, and by many other worshipful men, and also to those that be willing, we will declare the charge that belongeth to any true Mason to keep for in good faith. And yes, and ye have good heed thereto, It is well worthy to be well kept for a worthy craft and a curious science. For there be 7 liberal sciences.
There goes 7 again.
We got the 7 tetrarchs and we got the 7 sciences, of the which 7 it is one of them. And the names of the 7 sciences, being these, first is grammar, and it teacheth man to speak truly and write truly. And the second is rhetoric, and teacheth a man to speak fair in subtle terms. And the third is dialectic, and teacheth a man for to discern or know truth from false. And the fourth is arithmetic, and that teacheth a man for to reckon and to account all manner of numbers. I think this is another word for compute. And the fifth is called geometry, and that teacheth metrics and measure of earth and of all other things, of the which science is called Masonry. And the sixth science is called music, and that teacheth a man of song and voice, of tongue and organ, harp and trumpet. And the seventh science is called astronomy, and that teacheth man of the course of the sun, moon, and stars. Now, what's interesting about music and why that's so important as part of one of these 7 liberal sciences, music is the only thing that can enter your body without your permission. That's why it is so important to really pay attention to what you listen to and what you allow your ears to hear.
It's got heavy influence. I mean,
they
music
even make it a certain frequency to where you can't escape it. It's an underlying tone that your body and your subconscious gathers, but you don't gather it. So another message is being downloaded into you. Vibration moves water, and guess what element you are mostly made of?
Water.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And there's a reason you can't get certain songs out of your head once you hear it.
Exactly. Floating around in your mind. These be the 7 liberal sciences, which being all founded by one science, that is to say, geometric. And this may a man prove that the science of the work is founded by geometric, for geometry teacheth a man metrics and measure, ponderation and weight of all manner of things on earth. For there is no man that worketh any science, but he worketh by some metric or measure, nor no man that buyeth or selleth, but he buyeth or selleth by some measure or by some weight. And all these is geometric. Where have we seen this before? Scripture, Revelations. And these use merchants. The etymology of merchants is who? Mercury. And who is Mercury? Odin. Who is Odin? Hermes. And who is Hermes? Thoth. And all craftsmen and all other of the 7 sciences, and in especially the plowmen and the tillers of all manner of grounds, graves, vineyards, flowers, and setters of other fruits. For grammar or rhetoric, neither astronomy nor none of all the other 7 sciences can no manner find metric nor measure without geometric. Wherefore, me thinketh that the science of Geometry is most worthy, and that findeth all other. How that these worthy sciences were first begun, I shall tell you. Before Noah's flood, there was a man called Lamech, and it is written in the Bible. Look how they spell it. Now, this spelling is the spelling of the Bible before you get Bible. Sometimes it's spelled Bybele, and guess what? It goes back before the King James of 1611. This version here is where King James got his hand on it, and it became Bible. We're going to get into that too. In the the fourth chapter of Genesis, and this Lamech had 2 wives, and the one hight Ada, and the other hight Selah. By his first wife Ada, he got 2 sons, and that one Jabal, and the other Tubal. And by that other wife Selah, he got a son and a daughter. And these 4 children founded the beginning of all sciences in the world. And this elder son, Jabal, found the science of geometric. You see, the sons are dibbling and dabbling with those men of renown. Each one are doing it in 7s. And he departed flocks of sheep and lambs in the field. Now, don't misunderstand. Sheep and lambs is sometimes referred to as you and I, people. Okay? When you read in Genesis, when Jacob and Laban are splitting their flocks, and Jacob is taking some of the speckled sheep and some of the spotted sheep, and he put a potion together so that way he can only create sheep that only had speckled or pure white. That is not talking about animals. That is people. Back in the day, if you had servants who were actually people to till your land, to do whatever servitude that you need on your land, that is what generated your value of wealth. You had your army, you had your slaves, you had your harems, you had all of this, including cattle, goats, and regular animals as sheep. But when they talk about it as the flock, think about how many times the Christ has said flock in referring to you, the bride, the church.
I was just about to say that. Sheep, flock, and please correct me if I'm wrong. Aren't people today called chattel paper?
Chattel paper. Oh, yes. You take the H off of chattel, and what do you have?
Cattle.
Yep. But the H stands for human. And human is not what you want to call yourself. Nowhere do you find that in the King James or the New King James Version. You only find male, female, man, woman, father, mother, child, son, daughter. That's it. Human means one who is a monster and able to inherit land. Never ever let someone call you a human. That is the most disgraceful thing you could ever be called. And they do it all day because it's just the current modern society. It's okay. No, it's not. Now that you know, you have a responsibility to correct that. In the field and first wrought house of stone and tree, as is noted in the chapter above said, and his brother Tubal found the science of music, song of tongue, harp, and organ. And the third brother Tubal-Cain found smithcraft of gold, silver, copper, iron, and steel. Guess who else had the smithcraft of gold? Queen Khalifa on the island of Khalifa, former California. She had a lot of chimera. She had a lot of influence with gold, and she can control it. Magic. And the daughter found the craft of weaving. And these children knew well that God had found in 2 pillars of stone. This is interesting. And that they might be found after Noah's flood.
You skipped the part, my bad.
Oh, I did see it. I see it right here. And the daughter found the craft of weaving. And these children knew well that God would take vengeance for sin, either by fire or by water. Wherefore they writ their science that they had found in 2 pillars of stone, that they might be found after Noah's flood. And that one stone was marble, for that would not burn with fire. And that other stone was clept lanterns, and would not drown in no water.
So let me get this straight. They knew that they were going to get punished by the great I am.
They knew it and said, "We still going to do it anyway."
And these are man and woman, and people think that the fallen angels won't do whatever they want.
Yep, and they did it. Why? Because they want to gain the power of the world. WORLD. L for Lucifer, father of lies. A tampering of the word. You add the L, and now you have world. Different era, different kingdom. And they want it. They want what they can have and touch and feel right now. So they did it. Now, the 2 pillars of stone is what influenced the major Masonic movement. If you look at this image here, this is the twin pillars of polarity within Freemasonry.
Sauron.
This is the entrance. This is the all-seeing eye that we see on the dollar bill. And this is the symbol. This is the seal of Solomon. I'm going to read down here. It says, the twin pillars of Boaz and Jachin that stood at the entrance to King Solomon's temple are commonplace in Masonic ritual. And when they do a ritual, it is always a sacrifice. The enemy understands that there must be a sacrifice. There's a principle here. It's like when we give a first fruit of substance. Doesn't necessarily have to be money all the time, but when you give the first fruit of what you earned, that is a sacrifice because the heart is tied to it. Yep. So when you give it, there's always going to be a return equal to what you've given based on the quality of your heart, or even more. So a man reap what he sows, so a man will reap. And it's the same principle on the dark side. With the dark brothers in the Masonic Lodges, they understand that principle. That's why the enemy always does a sacrifice. When you hear music, when you hear actors that just pass away unexpectedly, they were sacrificed for the greater good of dark brothers.
Shoot. Kanye just did a video with him in a car, and I don't know if you guys seen it, but he openly admitted his mom getting sacrificed. And I know people have been talking about it, but he's saying it right there.
Right there. And I know he if he had anything to do with it, he regrets it gratefully, you know. And the fact that he said that is big, and I hope people pay attention. I really do. It says their symbolism goes much deeper than just the mere aesthetics or architectural necessity. This presentation will delve into some lesser known possibilities about the pillars. Now, I'll let you guys check out this link in the description, but this all relates to the Hermetic principles of polarity. This is going back to Thoth and Hermes. This is where the Masonic Lodges get their foundation from. Now, look at these pillars. This is a gateway into Solomon's temple, and wherever you are on this stage, that means you are willing to give the highest substance of a sacrifice to get the gain of the world, and he is watching.
Now,
he will give you his seal.
If the enemy is copying the great I am, is this eye trying to be a copy of the great I am, in the sense of the great I am being omnipresent?
This is a copy that, yes, he's the omnipresent. He's the all-knowing, all-seeing. Now he is at the farthest side of the north, where, you know, the Lucifer has said that he wants to sit at. Mm-hmm. So what he does is, well, let me put my image at the very top to say, look, I can even see above the great I am. No, you can't. But men don't know that, right?
Man, that's Lord of the Rings right there, Sauron.
That's Sauron, yeah. It's an eye just floating in the center of the tower.
Yep.
Exactly. Now, let's look at this, because we talked about Tubal-Cain, right? His name is Tubal-Cain.
Two balls and some cane.
You know what that sounds like, but it is the phallic member.
Uh-huh.
This is the Masonic exchange. This is where you can actually order the rings that they wear, right, to show your rank. That's a cane, and there is the Tubal, right? Look at this one here. I'm pretty sure you guys know what that symbol looks like.
That's perverse.
All you gotta do is draw a line from this ball to across the cane to the other ball, a line going through, and now you have a letter F for Facebook, right? You have the Tubal-Cain for Facebook. He was the first father of Masonry to establish the pillars, and they're recognizing him in such manner. Now, those two pillars that we looked at, it is Boaz and Joktan, and we find that in 1 Kings. I believe that is chapter 7, 1 Kings chapter 7, 13 through 21. Let's take a look real quick.
Real quick, just a little side note question. When that mentions Boaz right there, I've heard like women in church say, you better find you a Boaz man, you know, talking to other women, of course. Right. What do you think about that?
Well, let's kind of see what Boaz means. Let's look at it. 13. Well, let's read it. We'll find it. It says, now King Solomon sent and brought Hiram from Tyre. He was the son of a widow from the tribe of Naphtali, and his father was a man of Tyre. Now, Naphtali is one of the tribes of Israel, with Gad, Jacob, and all of them. A bronze worker. Oh, he was a bronze worker. Does that mean forgery? Or like we read with Tubal, bronze, metal, and all of that, but it is a simile for the spiritual aspect of Masonry. He was filled with wisdom, Thoth, the ibis, right? And understanding and skill in working with all kinds of bronze work. So he came to King Solomon and did all his work. And he cast 2 pillars of bronze, and each one 18 cubits high, and a line of 12 cubits measured the circumference of each. Then he made 2 capitals of cast bronze, then set on the tops of the pillars. The height of one capital was 5 cubits, and the height of the other capital was 5 cubits. He made a lattice network with wreaths of chain work for the capitals which were on top of the pillars, 7 chains for one capital and 7 for the other capital. So he made the pillars and 2 rows of pomegranates above the network all around to cover the capitals that were on top. And thus he did for the other capital. The capitals which were on top of the pillars in the hall were in the shape of lilies, 4 cubits. The capitals on the 2 pillars also had pomegranates above by the convex surface which was next to the network, and there were 200 such pomegranates in rows on each of the capitals all around. Then he set up the pillars by the vestibule of the temple. He set up the pillar on the right and called its name Joktan. So the right is called Joktan or Jachin. And he set up the pillar on the left and called its name Boaz. So let's look at Boaz. Boaz, from an unused root of uncertain meaning, Boaz is the ancestor of David, also the name of a pillar in front of the temple. Ancestor of David, a kinsman, redeemer to Ruth, daughter-in-law of Naomi, one of the left of the 2 brazen pillars for the porch of Solomon's temple. Now, so when they say you got to get you a Boaz man in church, it says fleetless here. That just means strong and sturdy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So in this context right here, are we reading and talking about this like in a good context for the great I am?
No. We're talking about a temple. This isn't the temple that was once created and then destroyed and then rebuilt again. This is something else. We know Solomon had his dibbling and dabbling in that type of stuff.
Right.
Right? He did. Now, how do we tie this in? Read that. This is the left and this is the right. So this right here is the left. This is Boaz. This is Joktan. And this is the seal of Solomon. Guess who else uses this seal? The order of the seal of Solomon. Look at this seal right here. It is the breast star of the Grand Cordon grade, the house order. What does this seal look like? It's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 pointed star. Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department. And Los Angeles County is not the only one, but that is identical. Some are 5 pointed, meaning the seal of David, and some are 6, meaning the seal of Solomon.
We got some wicked looking pyramids on there too, or some triangles.
We got some triangles in there too. This is 3 triangles, as in Egypt. Remember, the bear is facing the east. Just like you see in your, what do you call those? The the Sigma and all of them, when they have the shield, their crest, and they have the knight head at the top facing the east.
The Templar?
Knights of Templar, all the other college sororities, they have that knight's head at the top. They're always facing this way.
Shoot.
Everything is always facing to the left.
Does the Nike symbol point to the left?
The Nike symbol is like a little swoosh like this. You know, I'm drawing it with my mouse. Yeah, it does point to the left, which is the east from that perspective. And that is the Greek goddess Nike. Everything goes back to the Greeks. The Greeks knew what they were doing when it came to this Hermetica.
Yeah. These fallen are they figure out how to get some type of acknowledgement, even if you say, man, I don't acknowledge them or anything like that. Everyday life, they've ingrained it so hard. Everything is worship.
Yeah. Yep. Guess who else has been a follower of the Masonic Lodge and Thoth and all of this stuff? Have you guys ever heard of a man called John Dee? Big follower of Tubal-Cain, Aleister Crowley. John Dee goes all the way back to the end of the 14th or in beginning of the 15th century. But before I go into John Dee, remember these pillars here. We've seen this before, right? Let's go and look at this here. In the movie Avengers, Marvel's Avengers by Disney, the very first Infinity War, what is behind the Red Skull?
We got the Twin Towers.
The Twin Towers. Twin Towers look exactly like this, but this is the Boaz and the Joktin, the Jokshin, the two, left and the right, right? And this is very, very interesting. We have Thanos right here at the porch of Solomon's temple. And what is he doing? He's giving a sacrifice.
Gee whiz, I didn't even notice that.
He's giving a sacrifice. His daughter, his only begotten daughter, or his favorite daughter, Gamora, and it was the hardest thing for him to do. See, where your heart is where the sacrifice is. It's all about the substance of sacrifice. It doesn't matter if it's for the great I am or if it's for the great Satan Lord. Either way, you're going to give up something that's going to hurt your heart to show your fealty. And that is exactly what has happened here. It was the hardest thing for him to do.
Yeah.
As big and bad as he was crying. Threw her off. And then as soon as he got it, what was he rewarded with? Knowledge, the power of the soul mind. Isn't that what the Dark Brothers are trying to persuade men?
Yep,
the
that
soul
stone.
With the soul stone.
Shoot, Adam Warlock comes to mind.
And they're about to show him. They already casted him, and he's cut up real good.
He's he's doused in gold.
Yep.
In light.
Like you said, nothing is new under the sun. Absolutely nothing. Let's go into John Dee. John Dee was a big influencer or a great student of Aleister Crowley, not Aleister Crowley, but Tubal-Cain, followed by Aleister Crowley after John Dee. Who is John Dee? He comes out from, here we go, the School of Hermetica, alchemy. He comes from July 1527 through 1608 or 1609. He was an English mathematician, astronomer, astrologer, a teacher, occultist, and an alchemist. He was the court astronomer for and advisor to Elizabeth I, and spent much of his time on alchemy divination, and the Hermetic philosophy. As an antiquarian, he had one of the largest libraries in England at the time. As a political advisor, he had advocated the foundation of English colonies in the New World to form a British Empire, a term he is credited with coining. Now, I want you to know that they're playing with the dates here. They really are. When you talk about English colonies in the New World is, remember, go back to that ancient mystic Masonry book where we said the 15th century, it was rediscovered and repopulated in the 17th century to form a British Empire. If you look at the Articles of Association of 1774, you're going to find what America was called before it was the United States. It was called British America. That was the establishment of the English colonies on the eastern shore of the North American continent, and that is the beginning of the New World. Remember, it says repopulated in the 17th century. So what year is that? 17th century is the beginning of the 1800s, the end of the 1700s to the 1800s. This is not correct. Okay, John Dee was here in the 1700s. This is why they say the 15th century was rediscovered. It gives them time to write themselves into history and give you false history. They write themselves in. Now, it says he eventually returned. Let me go back up. It says John Dee, he eventually left Elizabeth's service and went on a quest for additional knowledge in the deeper realms of the occult and supernatural. He aligned himself with several individuals who may have been charlatans, traveled through Europe, and was accused of spying for the English crown. Upon his return to England, he found his home and library vandalized. He eventually returned to the Queen's service, but was turned away when he was succeeded by James I. Now, this is King James, the King James of the Bible. He didn't look like that, you guys. This is just a painting. You do your research deep enough, you find that John Dee and King James have a darker complexion. He died in poverty in London, and his gravesite is unknown. Of course, it's unknown. If you find out he is a melanated man, somebody's going to try to dig up those bones and figure out what he was. Now, your turn, Isaiah. You're going to read this one here. John Dee, Elizabethan 007, scientist, magician, and spy. Look at that there. Do you guys see the similarities?
Oh, man.
Boom, boom.
Just put that 7 right in the middle.
Just put that 7 right in the middle. There it is. For your eyes only. It says one of the foremost thinkers in England, John Dee, combined science with spiritualism to rise to the top of Elizabethan politics and cast a spell over the Queen with his counsel. And while his enemies would ensure that he was ridiculed and forgotten, he lives on the code name for beloved super spy James Bond. Like I said, he doesn't look like that. All right, Isaiah, you can take it from here, right here.
Gotcha. Who was John Dee? His contemporaries, such as Walter Raleigh, Sir Francis Drake, and William Shakespeare, who is said to have based the magician Prospero in The Tempest on Dee, are securely bookmarked in our catalog of British history. Dr. Dee, astrologer and confidant to the Queen Elizabeth I, has no such acknowledgement. He has been painted as a deluded man who looked to the stars for guidance, dabbled in alchemy, and communed with angels.
What?
Yeah.
Communed with angels. That means he called forth possibly writings that we just read in the Key to Magic of the Tablets of Thoth. But go ahead.
Yeah, you cannot move forward, and you got to pick one way. You got to pick the way, or you got to go the dark way.
Facts.
Yeah. But an alternate view is that he was one of the most brilliant men of the Renaissance, whose contribution has been muddied by centuries of slander. He was a polymath, engaged with most cutting-edge science of his day, which at the time was intertwined with magic and the occult. John Dee was born on the 13th of July, 1527, in London. His father was a minor courier who sent his son to Cambridge at 15. His appetite for knowledge meant he slept only 4 hours a night, spending his waking hours studying Greek, Latin, geometry, mathematics, astronomy, navigation, scripture, law, medicine, and cryptography, the art of writing codes. While still in his 20s, Dee was invited to a lecture on algebra at the University of in Paris. He swiftly became the most successful lecturer on the continent, packing halls and introducing the public to the addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division signs for the first time. As quoted, he lifted astronomy from obscurity, taught mathematics, and developed navigation systems that later would help to establish England's naval superiority. He was England's foremost scientist, respectful of, if not an advocate for, the controversial theory of heliocentrism, the astronomical model in which the planets all revolve around the sun. Dee lifted astronomy from obscurity, taught mathematics, and developed navigation systems that would later help to establish England's naval superiority. While at the University of Leuven in the Netherlands, Dee studied the occult. This was not uncommon for the era's intelligentsia, for whom science and magic were part of the quest to understand God. Let me pause right there real quick. I don't know who I was watching. I don't know if it was Brother Theo or just me just doing research, but there is something goes on in the Netherlands, especially in Den Haag. Like that's where like the elite or powers that be, they meet in Den Haag or Hague, Netherlands. They meet for some type of meeting. I remember reading that somewhere.
Yeah, there is a meeting there that they do. It's actually a festival where they put together some type of theater act, and there's a group of elitists where they are at the top of some type of stage or in the seatings area. It's outdoors and it's in a valley. And, you know, I think if people go online and watch the opening of CERN.
Oh, okay. I was just about to ask that.
That's where they were at. There and also in France.
Okay. Yeah, that's a super demonic ritual that they do. I can't get through like 5 minutes of it. I had to
Yeah.
turn it off.
Right.
A storm on the Spanish. When Elizabeth I took the English throne, she consulted Dee on a regular basis. He even chose her coronation date. And that reminds me of the dude who was in Return of the King on, I think his name was Wormtongue. He was he had that king under a spell, and it made him like he couldn't communicate with nobody. He couldn't do anything. And he had like this oppression just over him, and just made him look old, weary, and disgusting.
Oh yes, from the Lord of the Rings. I believe that was the second movie, right?
No, that was the I think it was the third one, Return of the King, and the dude that was speaking in his ear, his name was, I think, Wormtongue.
Yeah. Yep. Ugly guy.
It was said that he cast a spell on the Spanish Armada in 1588, which sent huge waves crashing down on their ships. Although a more likely explanation is that because he knew about meteorology, he was able to anticipate the storm. And I'm calling that's false, because obviously he's tapping in some type of power to be able to do those things. I mean, we see Yahusha get out. He was getting bothered. He was trying to get some rest, and the disciples was like, well, what's up with this storm? And he just told the storm to be still.
Right. Now, you either can conjure the angelic who has power over the elements, or it's not uncommon that we had technology that could control weather.
Mm-hmm.
He was dibbling and dabbling inside of not just the occultic stuff, but actual science, which that has a lot to do with geometry.
Yeah.
If you understand the geometry, you can understand how to put together certain devices and chemistry to tamper with the sky.
And that's what Batman says about magic. He says magic is just science unexplained.
Yep.
Or not explained yet.
Mm-hmm.
When the Spanish ships approached England, Dee suggested waiting, correctly predicting that the Spanish fleet would be severely hit by the storms, so it would best be to keep the English ships at bay. Most of the Spanish ships were lost or damaged, and when the storms subside, the English ships disposed of the rest. It was Dee's greatest moment. Elizabeth knew that Dee could do more for her and the nation. The queen needed a spy who could gather information about her enemies, and the well-traveled and loyal Dee was her man. He used his position as a scientific and astrological advisor to accumulate the largest library in England at his house in Mortlake, boasting some 2,600 manuscripts, as opposed to Cambridge's 451 and Oxford's 379, and to build a network of scientists, intellectuals, and carriers throughout Europe, which he likely used for intelligence gathering. Is this going to M16 or M something? Far as okay. Dee signed his letters to Elizabeth 007, aka Tubal-Cain. The two circles symbolize the eyes of Queen Elizabeth, for your eyes only, and the 7 was the alchemist's lucky number. And again, that's a hijacked.
Right. He's trying to hide where he's getting his knowledge from.
Yep. And not only that, it's a hijack of the day of completion.
The number of completion. Yep.
Dee played an essential role in what one day became the British intelligence service, both the real and the fictional version. Centuries later, he would sign off. His sign off would be picked up by James Bond creator Ian Fleming.
Awesome. Awesome, Reed. Thank you. Now, when we go back here and we see how he had the largest library and he's at the spawn of the 15th century, well, something happened. Of course, he has the opportunity to collect all the manuscripts and the books and be the top dog as far as information. It was ripe for the picking. And who's to say who has taken all of his books, because it says that his libraries was vandalized. So that means another power came in and took what he had. And I'm sure he had stuff far greater than the Dead Sea Scrolls.
Man, these elites and fallen, they know exactly where stuff is at. They say the same thing about the Alexandria library. Oh, it burned up, it got this and that. That's what they tell the public.
Right. That's exactly what they tell the public. So you guys, what do you think? What do you think about Tubal-Cain and him being the first Mason in the Bible and how that has influenced all the way to King Solomon and building that temple, the Temple of Solomon? We see the order of the Seal of Solomon and how that has been reflected on the sheriffs in our counties. If you notice, when you drive around the counties within the several United States, you'll see certain areas that has the Masonic Lodge, and there's other different crests and symbols in those areas that talk about the lodge, that talks about different orders, and guess who else? The Sheriff's Department. A lot of your sheriffs have the Masonic rings around their fingers, and we've seen a couple of them take a picture right on their website with showing their Masonic ranking, and that they are the sheriff or they are the deputy sheriff. And all of these things here come from the origins of Thoth, the semi-demi-god. He's had a major influences down to today. This has been one of my favorite studies in this series thus far, because this is where we're going to get into much deeper information. We have to get to this point. I hope you guys are sticking with us. Any last words, Isaiah, you got for the people?
I'm thoroughly enjoying this study. At first, it could seem a little shaky, but we know who to keep our eyes and our hearts and our minds on 100%, and that's the great I Am. And I'm ready to keep jamming. I mean, I got a second win. I mean, I know you need to get some rest, but I can keep going.
Oh yeah. Well, guys, that's it. Thoth, Twin Towers, Order of Solomon, the Sheriff's Department, and Tubal-Cain. All connected. It all connects. We'll see you guys in the next one.